if someone tells me that their controls are 100% perfect, I really wonder about that.
Relying on like, we're never going to put out no vulnerability will ever go out in our code. Like, what does that even mean? How do you even achieve that?
I don't agree with that. If you're doing compliance like a checkbox, then it's it's automatically not.
That should go without saying. Yeah. Checkboxes, we don't like checkboxes. Culture eats strategy every single time. People are in a position where they feel like that's not my call. But as a security professional, if you don't have a strong opinion and point of view, even if you're not hierarchically making the call, you should have a strong point of view about what is enough or not enough. It doesn't mean every decision is a security decision.
Fill the gap. The first one is the biggest unsolved problem in security is. Who wants to go first?
Welcome to Control Tomorrow podcast. I'm super excited to have you both here with us. So let's start with introductions. Stan, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Stan. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for Earnin. Thank you for having me here on the podcast today.
Of course. And Nick?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So Nicholas Moy, I'm the CISO for Scrub Automation.
Awesome. So the way it's going to look like, we're going to have a debate style discussion where I'm going to share prompts with you. And that's really where you either agree, disagree, or take a nuanced take on it. And it's all the hot topics in cybersecurity that everybody keeps on talking about and doubting. And that's the reason why we want to present different points of view on the issues that worry CISOs every day. So the first prompt is, the line between security and engineering is disappearing, and that's a good thing. So who wants to start?
Yeah, it is a good thing.
That's all.
I mean, I think it's a good thing because, you can't get security done if you're not working with other teams. I would take it further from like between security and engineering, between security and whoever they need to work with to actually make something change. It doesn't mean like, oh, we don't have a security team, we only have an engineering team. It's not literal, but you can't have the lines were all artificial anyways. It just prevented security from happening.
Okay.
So,
Stan, same opinion or slightly different?
It's similar, but maybe a little nuance. I've been in the industry long enough where security used to be a responsibility as part of engineering. As we kind of mature as an industry, it becomes more complicated. We start to separate between responsibilities. So it's good to see that the two set of responsibilities now common within the role. I think security professional needs to be more software engineers. And I think software engineers need to understand more security. The line blurring, I think, is great. I love where we're going with it. So long as the most important thing, in my opinion, is the fact that on either side, people who are doing security practitioners really understand general practices and good practice for software engineering. And software engineers really need to understand security, not something that's kind of a side responsibility, right? So while the line's blurring, they should be doing the same thing. They should take as much passion and accountability for doing both sides is what really needs to happen.
So getting passion and seeing this connection between the two. But what happens when we talk about companies that really have to scale and where you have to be hyper-focused? Does this still work, or what? Like, is it still a healthy state to be in?
I don't think there's a permanent state to be in. No one's in a permanent state. So like if a company is growing fast and has a lot of change to go through, and when I joined the company, we were only 20 people and now we're 200 people. So I've gone through a lot of change and that's only in a few years. I think it's a matter of like when, not if. So it's like maybe in this phase, what blurring the lines between security and engineering looks different than when it is, when you're 10 people, 20 people, 200 people. You still have to figure out how to do it. You still have to do it well. And I think the context of like security practitioners or whoever is responsible for security at whatever stage that is, if they don't understand how engineering works and vice versa, if the engineers don't understand how security works and they don't have good context, it's like bad prompts. It's like bad agents. Like agents that don't have good context have terrible outputs.
So, Stan, do you think is this supposed to be an assumption right now that engineers have to have some form of security understanding and vice versa?
So it has to, so that whatever product and services that a company provides and builds that engineers are responsible for, they do it in a way that's secure, right? You want to always embed security. You want to design early security should be by default. So from that perspective, you have to understand it. The question comes down to how much an engineer needs to understand it and how much do they understand from a context perspective to the next point. An early stage company versus a late stage company, security requirements is going to look a little different. Expectations of what the company is able to manage is going to look different. If you start a company with the premise of I have to secure everything, it's really hard to start a company successfully because the barrier to entry is too high. Right? So there's a list of things that you have to manage through and prioritize for, right?
Yeah.
So the question comes down to, are the engineers learning not just the product and enabling the business responsibilities, but also understanding these adjacent things are happening inside their overall responsibilities?
Yeah.
I think that part, is becoming more knowledge driven, and with a lot of AI capabilities, maybe is becoming something that's more accessible than it has been for, say, the last 10 years or so.
Well, it will be interesting how it's going to look like in the next 2 years, how much of the line's going to get blurred.
It's going to be a lot of work. It's just a lot of work.
It's change.
Yeah.
That's a lot of change.
I think it's actually going to be more work in the next 10 years, not less.
So the next prompt is, the cheapest vulnerability to fix is the one that never gets written.
Oh, yeah, I have a strong opinion on that one. I don't think it's possible to everything's going to be perfect. I think, for everything a company does know and what they do learn, they should be avoiding those mistakes going forward. However, they get that back into their coding agents or their development process. But relying on we're never going to put out no vulnerability will ever go out in our code. How what does that even mean? How do you even achieve that? How will you do that for things you don't even know exist? You'll have libraries in your code that will become vulnerable that you don't know are vulnerable today, that will be vulnerable tomorrow. How are you going to prevent that? You can't predict the future, and you can't prevent everything. And so I think it would be to say we could solve security by just doing that. And I think for most teams, it's actually a lot harder to do that because I don't think they have the knowledge and context to do it well. If they were even to try to solve their security problems by preventing all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the point of unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
In situations that you don't even know what is about to come out, when we essentially talk about 0 days.
I mean, 0 days, they should call them every day. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. What do you think about this then?
Is it, philosophically, I agree with it, because we all know fixing a vulnerability in production is the most costly way of fixing it.
Yeah.
So the idea and concept behind it is correct. I also agree with Nick that it's impossible to get to perfect code. Whether it be even, I write my engineers, or I myself write vulnerable code, versus the compiler I'm using has issues in it, or the underlying operating system has issue with it. And then there's the ultimate design flaws, architectural flaws, which are really, really hard to anticipate. So you have design flaws, and you also have code level flaws. So those are different types of vulnerabilities. In those cases, what can you defend against? What can you anticipate? I think I agree with Nick on that. Is those are the ones that are very expensive to work through. That's why we have all these design processes, the threat modeling processes, that help us understand what are the risks and exposures before you even start coding. So coding is one part of it. I think some of these things that are a little more complicated to identify, it's always going to be difficult. I think some of the tools and advanced capabilities around AI would help surface these a little faster, find more of it before it gets to production, which I think is the right thing. So it gives us more time to work on how fast can we react and respond, how are there additional controls and infrastructures and guardrails we put in place, right? Those are the things that is worthwhile to invest. You're just moving from one focus area to another.
So when we double down on the part of the question where we say the cheapest vulnerability to fix, do you think is this already being implemented at companies on a global scale? Because there is this concept where a lot of security leaders like to add the solutions after something is being created. But then when it comes to the cost component, right? Right now, especially with the volume of vulnerabilities that we're seeing today, do you think is it something that's already being implemented?
I think a lot of vulnerabilities may not need to be fixed, because I think the assumption is like, is that cheap vulnerability one that's actually important to fix because it is? Like in a vacuum, if you just look at a vulnerability, you say this package, this thing in our code base, this logic flaw, or this SAS finding is vulnerable. That alone doesn't mean it's worth fixing unless it's actually like part of a chain of vulnerabilities that make it actually lead to a consequence.
How
I think
exploitable?
better understanding if it's actually exploitable and reachable and all this stuff matters way more than just like, there's so many vulnerabilities that never get exploited. I mean, think about the volume of like Qualys scan results, Qualys, Tenable, Rapid7, whatever. People have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rows of vulnerabilities in those sheets.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, you know, some of those people may feel the way they do, that they don't actually go fix them. Because, I mean, whether they're aware or not, they don't feel like there's any urgency because it hasn't been exploited. And it may be, sometimes they may be right and sometimes they may be wrong. Maybe they just don't know it. But a lot of times, at least from my personal experience managing like, you know, kind of large infrastructure, a lot of those things are just not, they're not the most important thing. And I guess for all these things, it's like, if you were to ask me, would I choose to go fix some random vulnerability because it's easy versus like because it's the right one to fix? Those are two different like questions. Like it could be cheap to fix, but is it the one that's going to have the most impact and benefit?
So it feels like you're introducing another variable in this equation. It's like, it's not necessarily the cost factor, but it's also the importance factor if we were to draw that scale of cost and importance.
If you only looked at the cost, that would be silly.
So I have a difference in opinion with you on that one, right? So I agree with exploitability. So given any body of work at any one time, you have to prioritize and figure out what's the most important thing. Like one of the things that I philosophically kind of landed on with exploitability, the expression of exploitability is a function of time. So it may not be exploitable right now. The challenge I have is what else is changing within the environment that would change the exploitability factor, which is really difficult to assess. I think some of the tools that are coming out right now that we talked about a little bit actually gives us ability to assess for exposures and attack vectors. If you have that ability, I would agree with you. But I also look at an engineering team's ability to patch as a function of engineering excellence and operational excellence. Ideally, a lot of these things that they're doing, they're automatically updating, automatically patching. They have to maintain the infrastructure. If they're not able to patch because of security vulnerabilities, what else are these engineering teams not able to do? So I look at it as a proxy to how well operational excellence is running with an engineering team. It's if they tell me that it's difficult to patch, either the code base is outdated, they don't have enough testing, they don't have enough automation in place, something else is causing that patch to be difficult to patch.
Makes sense. Wow. I love that. This is good. This is good dynamic. The third promise, the organizations that move fastest will ultimately be more secure than the ones that move cautiously. Okay, Stan,
So
you can start.
I'll start with this one, and you could give me, you could throw shades at me on this one. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I think in the tech sector, we love to get to a place where we want to move fast because we value the experimentation and learning from experimentation, that as being the key thing. I think a lot of organizations that tends to move fast without learning. And I think that's a key difference in that particular statement, right? It's not about just moving fast. You have to move fast, but intentions and with learning. A team that moves fast without understanding the vector they're moving towards, they may be moving in circles, right? Understanding the direction and understanding intentions and why they're moving fast and how they're moving fast, that's way more valuable than just the blind speed of it.
Makes sense. I mean, oftentimes when you move too fast, security can actually out of sudden appear and pull you back all the speed that you achieved throughout that time, but then you have to go back and fix it later. What do you think about this, Nick?
Yeah.
Agree, disagree?
So when you said that, I think the first thing that I thought was there are teams that move fast, and like Stan said, and I agree with this, is like they don't know anything. They're not any better than they were yesterday, and doesn't matter, And I saw this through like the 2010s, where it was like, we have cloud now, continuous delivery, we can push code 24 hours a day, 365. We don't even need coding agents. People were pushing code round the clock, right? And like the products it didn't mean they were better, didn't mean they were performing better. Even with A/B testing, it was just kind of like delivery for delivery's sake. It's like, let's just ship code. And from a security perspective, I mean, actually most security teams don't move fast, so it doesn't matter anyway. But I think
Problem solved.
Problem solved. But I actually think when I saw being cautious, it's sort of like, I think that security teams that are extremely intentional have strong points of view and opinions about their tech stack, their architecture, and their company's just sort of overall environment. Whether it's being cautious, if they're being methodical and they're being thoughtful, they'll be like 5,000% better than a team that's just like running around doing random shit, like 100% of the time.
I just love how you keep on changing my questions from cautious to methodical. But it does make sense. It does make a massive difference when you say methodical. It's not necessarily cautious. This is like, what are the steps that you're taking to do all of this? I don't want to say activities, because then that right now also has negative connotation.
Benefit of the doubt. I was like, well, why are they being cautious? Must be a good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, when it comes to the speed of development, I think you briefly touched upon this, but when you push something for the sake of pushing something, this creates a lot of samenesses in the industry. So in a way, security can also be a great champion who can come in and say, hey, be more methodical about it.
Yeah, it's the cautious part. If you're doing it cautious with a reason, with a purpose, and is cautious enough? Yeah. It's always that fine balance of what is enough. Is it secure enough? Is it there's there enough mitigations for a particular known risk? Is that part that determines is it good or bad, right?
I think most people in our industry are afraid to answer the question of what is enough.
Does anyone know what is enough?
I mean, they should for their company if it's their job. I get most people are in a position where they feel like that's not my call, that's the CTO's call, that's the head of product, that's the company, it's business, revenue. It's fair, but as a security professional, if you don't have a strong opinion and point of view, even if you're not hierarchically making the call, you should have a strong point of view about what is enough or not enough. If you don't have an opinion, I mean, it's a bigger problem for you in your career.
Yeah, it's a whole different spectrum of problems that you're yet to navigate. And okay, we have the next prompt. Most people entering cybersecurity are preparing for jobs that won't exist.
I feel like I've been doing this for a few decades. I feel like that's always the case, right? The job I did 2 years ago is not the same job I do now. I think Nick and I talk about our responsibilities and scope also changed very recently.
Yeah.
I think they're very close now. But I think it's always been the case. Security industry moves so fast. Whatever we learn today, very likely a year, 2 years out, it's going to be a different skill set. You might have a similar job title. You might have the same job title. It's probably the work that's going to look different. If I ask my team right now, what they're doing, if they would have imagined that's the same thing that they would be doing 2 years ago, they're probably coming in. It's like, there's no way we thought AI was going to be at the state it is. Right. But before AI was machine learning, before machine learning was cloud, before that was something else, right? There's always something else that looks different. I think the one thing that's unique about the security industry is it's not just the technology, the stack that changes, it's the threat vector, the business model change. It's that constant change that makes it really exciting to be in security. we're never really doing the same job, at least not from a longer-term year-to-year perspective.
Yeah. Okay, you can say the question again, and I'll try not to change it. The prompt.
It's fine. You can change it, but it's not about the fact of changing it. It's bringing more color to it.
Yeah.
And okay, the question is, most people entering cybersecurity are preparing for jobs that won't exist.
Yeah, I mean, to Sam's point, that I agree that could be true, because there's no way, like, I remember the first cybersecurity book I was suggested to read by a mentor was like a CISSP kind of prep book. There's no way this book could like be current with everything that's happening even a year later. But would I say it's useless to prepare for something and learn something and go through a process to understand something? And like for Stan and myself, we had different jobs, before, and but now we have what we do 2 years later is different than what we did 2 years ago. I guess what seems to be implied in this prompt is that like somehow that's like a bad thing if they're preparing for jobs that won't exist. But I think if they're preparing for something that actually is what's necessary, because learning is the important part. There's no one skill set in cybersecurity that is static, except having an ability to learn things.
Okay. So if we go more precise about it, let's say you're thinking about going to university, getting your first degree, what this degree should be to sort of help you to set the foot in cybersecurity industry.
I mean, if you go get a degree in something where you learn something and develop strong opinions about that something and go through a critical thinking process, have to articulate ideas about the something, that will be useful, because that is so hard to just like get. But like someone who just memorizes something for an exam, for a certification, how is that's definitely not going to help you. But if you go get a degree, whether you believe in college or not, I think the process you're going through is the important part, because that process will repeat itself every time there's a change in the industry, in the discipline, in the function. So
Yeah.
So for what the advice I give to kids who are entering or looking to enter cybersecurity, the knowledge they learned is very much a moment in time. Their favorite tool, whatever it is, their favorite script that they're running, applies for the time. The basics of it generally is also applicable for future type of activities. The most important thing is actually the process of learning. It's the analytical capabilities, your ability to research, the ability to collaborate. Those are the richest moment from the university environment. It's not what you read in the book. It's not the knowledge you get tested for, because that's going to get dated really, really quickly in our industry, right? Is to enjoy the process, find passion in the process, find passion in the people, find passion in the problem. If they could do that, then they will have a very healthy career in cyber. If they can't find that, I don't know if that's the best choice for them.
Yeah, they have to find that somehow. But
Got it. I think I was speaking to one of the heads of security, and he was telling his experience, how he actually did a certification that he ended up failing 3 times. So just that process of going through it again and again and constantly suffering until you get to the point of, okay, I succeeded, is actually what allowed him to continuously learn and adapt at his job every day.
Yeah. And you could do that in college. You could do that like that. You could, as long as you continuously suffer to learn.
Yeah. Hopefully no real life incidents.
Yeah. But don't stop loving learning. I think that's the hard part.
Yeah. Never stop learning. Okay. Next prompt is: the most important security decisions are made by people who don't work in security. Yes or no?
I feel like I'm going to answer a lot of questions with a caveated path, right? Fundamentally, philosophically, I say I disagree. because the CISO's position is really have full accountability for everything that happened from a cyber risk perspective. Whether or not we are necessary decision maker for everything that happens that amounts up to a potential exposure or a threat or attack is we're not going to own every single decision. Same way a CFO is not going to own every single financial decisions within the company, but they ultimately still have the accountability for a CISO. I think that's also very true. Mm-hmm. I think what we struggle with is sometimes we don't agree with the balance between business and risk exposure. Do we prioritize shipping a feature? Do we prioritize fixing a thing? Mm-hmm. We may not agree, but the most important thing is we're not in that particular role along with your peer group, whether it be on the product side, on the legal side, marketing side, whatever it may be. Can you get to a point where you agree on the prioritization, what the company needs at the moment? That is probably the harder challenge. I think a lot of people struggle with it because a lot of us come from either a technology background, operational background. So we have that hard time speaking the language of these other functions, and getting that alignment is what makes it feel like it's someone else's responsibility. Mm-hmm. But I would say I generally think that it is absolutely the CISO's responsibility, the accountability for all security decisions.
Mm. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I agree. So that means I guess I disagree with the most important decisions are made by non-security people, right?
Yeah.
So because it doesn't mean every decision is a security decision, like Stan was saying, right? It's like, but if a security leader doesn't make security decisions, then I don't actually know why they have a job. And then on the prioritization piece that that Stan was talking about, I see this happen a lot where someone takes a job at a company and then is surprised by like, oh no, why are they making these decisions? Why are they making those decisions? And this prioritization should have been like first thing you discussed before taking the job. It shouldn't be implicit. And even if you discuss it, it could be, it's only what people think they understand. And sure, it could change, but you should make it explicit. Like, I won't take a job if I don't talk to the CEO and CTO and the leadership team about like, how do you think about risk at the company? Because if I don't agree with that, why take the job?
That's a fair point. I think this is the key word, prioritization, right? Whenever you enter security industry, security job at any company, at the end of the day, even though you have your board level, CEO level making decisions every day, if you say something to them not to do and they end up doing it, whose responsibility it is? Is it the CISO's responsibility or is it somebody else's responsibility? I guess that's the main question.
I mean, who's responsible? It was your responsibility as a security leader to provide the security point of view, the security decision, the security kind of expertise, just like a CFO.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it is like a company-wide decision, it is a CEO's job to make the final call.
Yeah.
Because they are ultimately accountable. If a CEO tells you that that's not true, that's a red flag. Hard pass. Like, you should be like, this guy is, or gal or something.
We don't get along with this guy.
Yeah, this is not the CEO
not my guy
to work for, whoever it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, in those cases, I think there's a share. I think ultimately what it comes down to is like there's a decision is shared, right? Getting that alignment with your peer group, the other executives in the company is important. If you end up working for a CEO where the CEO makes every single call in the company and you're just an advisor, then the reality is the CEO is just managing every single decision inside that particular company. So it doesn't matter if you're CFO or CEO, CTO, CPO. In that type of environment, that is the...
Then it becomes a culture problem rather than
that's
security.
Ownership, that's accountability.
Most security problems are culture problems. Just saying.
Culture people,
It is a big topic. The next prompt is, and I think we should start with Nick about it. Compliance has become a competitive advantage, not just a requirement.
I mean, it's an advantage. People like doing it. And I used to, like, I will admit, like, back when I was a security engineer, I used to go to the GRC team and be like, what are you guys doing? Why do you guys spend so much time on this? Why do we even care? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't real security. I was one of those people. It's been humbling to learn over time and over the years. I've learned something that I saw the urgency with which teams and companies would move to go achieve some kind of compliance framework attestation for external audits, whether it's for PCI at an e-commerce company or like SOC 2 and ISO for like, say, B2B SaaS companies. And the most vocal supporters of doing it were not the security team, or if they had a security team, it came from like the head of sales, the CEO themselves saying like, hey, we have to get this done like 6 weeks ago in the past. I was like, well, how is that possible?
Yeah.
But because a customer is driving this requirement, and I had used to be on the other side, so my life's come full circle, where we would go tell our like 2,000 vendors at Expedia, where like everyone needs to go get third-party attestations, get these reports, because it's going to make us feel better about using your product.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff about that I feel strongly about, but is it like the ultimate competitive advantage? I mean, it's a competitive advantage. There's a lot of advantages that you can have. But if there are two vendors I'm choosing from and one says they're just for some reason, whatever the reason, unwilling to like get a third party audit or attestation or something, I'm definitely gonna probably not go with them unless they're like they're providing something so magical and magnificent that like I would look past all that, because anything that's actually critical that's going to like touch our production or customer data, I would want them to be committed to doing something about it, even if they're early stage. And I am reasonable about what they're doing. Like if they can talk through their security posture, their data flow diagram, their architecture, and they know about this stuff even before the audit happens. But if they just say like, oh, we're not going to do it, I guess that would be a disadvantage for them.
Yeah, I guess in that case, it's less about competitive advantage wouldn't matter if that requirement doesn't exist. Yeah. What do you think about this then?
So big plus to what Mike is describing. I don't believe in, so I think the caveat I'm going to lay out here is if you're doing compliance like a checkbox, then it's it's automatically not.
That should go without saying. Checkboxes, we don't like checkboxes.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, do you do this process? Do you do this process? If you're just checkboxing everything, but you could get through certifications and compliance for many things by doing that.
Yeah.
But if that is your perspective, then compliance is definitely not a competitive advantage. It just becomes like, hey, I need to do this because someone's requesting, someone's expecting it. The way that I believe compliance could be done is that they could inform on risk. So you can actually stay ahead of the curve instead of meeting your competitors. I think if you do compliance that way, then it's very much a competitive advantage. And also a lot of the certification are really much, like Nick was saying, is sales enablement tool. So a lot of conversations I have in the last few roles when I have to talk compliance, it is a sales enablement. For example, you can't sell to federal government if you don't have FedRAMP. You can't even start the conversation. So you need to get that done. In order to get FedRAMP, there's a whole bunch of things that you may or may not agree with that you have to do as a risk inside a company. In that particular case, you have to do it because it allows a company to enter into a very large, profitable business. In those cases, it's absolutely a competitive advantage. So the caveat there is like, how do you see compliance? Is it a checkbox for the sake of doing it? Or are you doing it actually above and beyond? I've also heard from other CISOs, like they pick one particular vendor over another because when they look at a compliance report, one looks very much like, yep, this is kind of as a body shop type of situation. They just checked all the boxes. This particular team actually knows what they're doing. I've seen that being a differentiator, right? So a lot of times how you build your compliance program, the CISO that's responsible, sometimes the CISO, sometimes the compliance officer, whoever leads the compliance program, if they think about it in the right way and they could tell that story, then this is an advantage.
Yeah, you can tell. I think the challenge that I have, maybe the gripe I have with our industry is that a lot of security teams, I don't think it's their policy, but I feel like a lot of third-party risk management teams on the receiving end of the reports don't spend enough time vetting them. But that behavior, maybe they don't appreciate with their great power comes great responsibility. If they don't vet them enough, and only occasionally they run into CISOs like Stan and I and peers we have,
Yeah.
then they treat it like a check the box exercise because 8 out of 10 people didn't look at it. 2 out of 10 did, us, and then they were like, oh, okay, we'll have to deal with these high maintenance people. And then everybody else is like, cool, good, nice, checkbox. Yeah.
I also is funny, right? There are companies I run into. One of the first things they say is, "Oh, we would never have any findings or observations on our compliance report." So at one point, I'm thinking like, either your environment is completely static, you never do anything different, or maybe you didn't scope it in a way that you need to scope it. Because how can, if someone tells me that their controls are 100% perfect, I really wonder about that.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it's sure 100% perfect.
It's like saying there are no vulnerabilities out there.
Yeah.
I'm 100% perfect.
I mean, did you build that environment yesterday? Then maybe, but it's like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the business never grown. It's just always the same 3 customers.
It's just good.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's also very much ties up, I guess, the common theme there was, what type of customers do you want to serve? If you want to serve customers that really are careful about the customers that they're serving, then you really have to prioritize that. If you're serving smaller companies that, again, going back to the point of speed, right, that just want to emphasize speed, then perhaps that's not a priority, but it's just a matter of time when it will become an important factor.
Yeah. I mean, I get it depends. I guess everyone wants to serve customers with money. Those are the best customers. But it is, I don't know. I think I feel like I run into a lot of security and compliance professionals somehow who think that this is about like something else. Like this is a philosophical academic decision. Like we should do this. We have to do this, or we shouldn't do that, or don't want to do that. And I was like, look, this is all driven by business behavior. Like if your customers don't care, your leadership won't care, and then you probably won't have a job there anyway. So like, but if your customers care, that will drive the urgency for the need to do these things. And by extension, the budget and investment, because it is important to your customer base and whatever kind of customer it is, then the investment will be there to actually go do something because it will be seen as a competitive advantage. Like if you're selling fintech or e-commerce or something else where it matters. So
yeah, 100%. So this is where I'm going to leave you guys.
Oh, all right.
yeah, it's magic.
All right, round 2.
All right. Fill the gap. The first one is, the biggest unsolved problem in security is. Who wants to go first?
Biggest unsolved problem.
2
Well-
words or less. I'm just kidding.
2 words. I'm trying to decide which area to pick.
You can go with 2.
Well, so the obvious one from the conversations we've been having today is really around software vulnerabilities. It's I'm probably going to do this wrong, but I think it's been one of those philosophical that translate into mathematical problem that software vulnerabilities will never go away. It's not a solvable problem. Because at some point, there's all the technologies all the way down to hardware, CPU, firmware. There's a human involved, at least up until very recently. This has always been human involved. And even the AI right now is trained on human data that is likely, at least for some time in the future, likely still going to have vulnerabilities in there. So I think right now there's been an unsolvable problem. You could get much better at it. You could get reaction and response time much better at it. But I don't think it's a problem that could be solved.
There's a huge blank, by the way. But
Yeah.
just kidding. It's just kidding. Since that can't be solved, the thing I would say is prioritization. Like people don't know what they're trying to protect, and people should be solving that. But oh well.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right, let's move on to the next one. Again, fill the gap. The security skill that will become most valuable is.
Having an opinion.
You're on fire. That's great.
To go back to the earlier part of the conversation is the learning.
Yeah.
Someone being open-minded and willing to learn whatever the situation scenario is, or whatever the data, the feedback, the input is. I think a lot of secure professionals most of the secure professional opinionated. Sometimes they're well-informed. There are individuals I've met that are less open to learning, and they're kind of stuck in the moment in time, and those are the ones that's going to be a challenge long term.
Yeah. More bookish knowledge or not practical enough, or maybe having limited context. Yeah.
Overly confident individuals. We all run into one or two of those individuals once in a while.
They don't last very long, so I can't say why, but
All right. The next one is the security industry is underinvesting in
junior talent.
Agree.
Yeah.
I think the problem's getting worse right now.
Yeah, and I think the senior talents. There are times where I find senior talent, like getting a staff security engineer, is genuinely the right thing, but it's not always. And everyone can't have as many as them that there are job postings for, because it seems like every job posting is for one. And if we don't have any, and I actually think that junior talent is better at a lot of things than they're better at different things.
It's a balance, right?
And I've seen senior security engineers who are way slower at new things because they know too much.
Yeah, they're evaluating too many possibilities.
They've thought about it all, but someone who's fresh out of they don't know what they don't know, so they'll just try.
Yeah. How bad is the situation? Because constantly I hear companies have stopped hiring new grads and junior talent because the running story is AI is going to replace the analyst level job, and thus I don't want to hire.
Yeah, they're gonna feel that pain real soon here. Just wait.
So we had talked about this a little bit. A lot of what we do it's not just knowledge, right? I think AI is great. If you're relying on pure knowledge, I think it's great. Mm-hmm. The real skill set is a combination of the knowledge being put that into practice, some of the softer skills around how do you prioritize, how you negotiate. That part will always be very human driven, and you need to experience with it. So the challenge I put out to a lot of peer groups out now is like, hey, I'm not going to use AI. Fast forward 5 years from now, let's say this world that you're living in becomes the reality. 5 years from now, everything going to be AI? You'll be the only person in the company? If not, where you can bring in talent from who have experience actually doing this. So if you're saying that all of your entry level position is going to be replaced by AI, and that's just a dead stop conversation for those individuals, 5 years from now, what happens?
They're cooked, as the kids would say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think humans will be there, especially for a lot of judgment decisions. And if you're not training people, if you're not giving them scar tissues, this is how security industry, as we talked about, continuous learning. It's not about running a tool or replaying the same playbook.
Yeah.
You learn, you adjust, and there are a lot of judgment calls, a lot of interpersonal skills that come into the picture. And if you're not training the junior talent around it, you eventually are going to have some problem.
Would you launch a machine learning model or an agent that didn't persist context? No, you would never do that. It's just as dumb to do that for humans. And it's going to go poorly for those companies that believe they will have zero junior talent. Because if it was as repetitive and simple of a problem as they think it is, we would have solved it before LLMs. We had enough compute, storage, and memory and machine learning models to do it. It didn't solve it.
Yeah, I think the other problem, I think in parts of our industry, certain folks in the industry talk about the mental health in cyber. Burnout is real, very real. I mean, if I look at a lot of people I started my career with, how many of them are still in it? It's quite a few less than where I started with. So the question comes down to, if we're not training the new younger folks who are coming into industry and people are burning out, I think the math there is quite predictable there.
Yeah. Yeah, burnout and mental resiliency is huge. I personally handled Log4j when that was happening, when I was at Salesforce. And I still remember Christmas, how the whole thing evolved. And probably that was the biggest learning that I went through, from crisis to stakeholder management to even staying calm but moving faster with intent.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest learning experience I had in my career.
But that was priceless, right?
Yeah.
And I remember for myself, it was like Heartbleed, it was Bash, it was there were so many. And then, Log4j later. And it's just like, those were such great opportunities to learn, understand coordination, decision making, and ruthless prioritization. Because like time, people are looking at the clock. They want hourly updates on those like remediated machines. Yep. They're looking for the IOCs. But you learn like a lifetime's worth of stuff in that situation that transfers. Like even your future problems may not be Log4j again, but it becomes useful, whether it's an NPM package compromise and everything else that we have to deal with today.
Yeah. Let's do the last one. What are you most optimistic about?
This is a fill in the blank thing.
Yeah.
Human potential. I think like with every technological whatever that happens, disruption, advance and stuff, sometimes it's chaotic and whatever. There's like nothing is inevitable. Everything requires a decision, something to happen, one step after another. And we can only do it 24 hours at a time. And when you think about like the fullness of time, whether you have 1 year, 10 years, and that many hours and that many days, there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that can be changed. And anyone who says anything is inevitable is just has an agenda, has a motive, and that's their job maybe, and that's their incentive. But none of that it's as true as I could say something's inevitable a year from now, but it's as true or untrue as anything anyone else says. And so I think all of us have the opportunity to like just go do something.
Yeah.
Somewhat related to that, for me, this has been a challenging one. I would say human optimism, right? But I think in our industry, it's very easy for us to think about all the things that could go wrong, right? We go into board meetings like, here's your risk, here's all your exposures. I think by default, we're kind of trained professionally to highlight what could go wrong. An interesting effect with Mythos that came out. Anthropic was, I love it because now I don't have to talk about all the things that go wrong. I have people coming to me inside the company like, hey, what are we going to do about this? Because
Anthropic did your job and you don't have to educate now.
Right. So I don't need to be that person. Now, the interesting thing I saw inside the industry is a lot of the security practitioners for once actually not saying it's all doom. Everyone's like, hey, this is actually not as terrible as we think it's going to be. All of a sudden, when everyone else is screaming, oh my goodness, this is going to be the end of the world, the most negative people about this space also coming back like, it's not really that bad.
Anthropic is actually a security jobs program. It's doing it incredibly well.
Yeah. That's a great insight, right? Security would think about what could go wrong. You keep educating people. But in this case, I think it went to the other extreme, and security is also saying, guys, it's not that bad. We have it under control. In a way.
I think in the first time in my career, I've seen the largest group of security professionals come back and say, hey, for once, it's actually not.
Chill out. Chill out. Everyone's like, it's the end of the world. This guy on TV said it's the end of the world. And it's like, oh my God.
Hey, 3 months down the line, all cybersecurity stocks are back to all-time high.
Right.
That's one way to look at it.
But I mean, there's more cybersecurity work now than there ever was before. Correct. I feel like I have more work than I did at the beginning of my career. Yep. And I think most security professionals I know today, whatever their role is right now, they have more work, not less. And they're trying to automate as much as possible. And it's not creating less work, And I think sometimes work shifts around, when individual companies stop building big data center build outs, and they're like, oh, it's the end of the data center. We have more data centers than we ever dreamed of because hyperscalers ended up building all the data centers for everybody else. There's still data centers, right? And all those infrastructure engineers that used to be in-house at an enterprise ended up at Meta, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft building data centers again. And still, right? They're not buying less switches. They're not buying less routers. And okay, so we'll have things do change. Things do look different. The work, the process, and everything else. But the idea that we're just gonna be there's no more security work. Like I'm waiting to retire. So like retire me.
I would love that.
I would love that. Retire me and all future cybersecurity professionals. Like, let's do it. Like, I'll walk over to their office. It's like just over there.
I would love to stop getting breach notifications from
everything,
banks, from
right?
my credit
Every
card.
day, it's like nonstop.
So that's the wrap. Let me recap. So thank you so much. This was a very insightful, very candid conversation. You guys were great. You disagreed, added nuances, but at the same time doubled down on things that made sense. Things that stood out to me, it was a very balanced kind of the view and responses that I heard. Something that you mentioned, every security problem is a culture problem. There are other things that we noticed on moving fast. Everybody says move fast, but moving fast with intentionality and direction matters more than just running like a headless chicken. So to me, this conversation was very insightful. We talked about talent that I'm pretty sure will be very useful for anyone watching who is early in the career, trying to figure out how to enter into cybersecurity or how do I move up and start solving more complex problems. So that's on my side. Any final remarks from either of you or both of you on what are your takes? Any changes in opinion or stance based on rest of the discussion that you heard?
I love an opportunity to share perspective, to hear a different perspective, and to have healthy intellectual debate about things. We don't always have to agree on things, but I think that's exactly what our industry need more of, right? The conversations like this. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was super fun. The one thing is it reminds me that like I think in our industry we spend a lot of time coming up with our own frameworks, all our own security things. We have so many MITRE ATT&CK, this thing, that thing, whatever. It's all great, wonderful, I love all of it. But I think we forget that like a lot of other parts of the business have problems, right? And over time they've developed ways to solve and think about problems as they evolve and change. It's like business management isn't the same as it was 50 years ago, but they've had to think about how are we going to solve these problems? One of those things that I forgot the person who wrote it and said it, but from like the non-security business side of things, it's like culture eats strategy every single time. Every successful company in the world, culture eats strategy. Yep. It didn't matter that one company had an amazing strategy. It mattered if they could actually execute it. And that was a function of culture, not the other way around. So same with security.
Yeah. 1000% agree. Culture, people matters the most. Technology and problems keep coming and going. But if you don't put the right framework and culture in place, you will not be successful.
I wish I could buy a product for culture though. Like, that would be great. But like we can't. So all the products solve the easy parts. Yeah. Culture is like
the neural chip.
Yeah.
Change how
culture is the job. I feel like culture is our job more often than not, right? So,
sometimes it's defining and changing culture, right? And that's hard. That's one of the hardest things that we have to be able to
We spend more time on that. The products and the technical stuff comes and goes.
Yeah, every leader I admire, when they take on a new job, I've seen them focusing more on culture. Yeah. And that sets the tone at the company level versus any CISO who starts a new job and starts thinking about, I don't like this tool, I want to replace it. That typically turns into a red flag.
That's the easy part to do, right? Add it to the list. Ripping out too, it's like
another red flag. So many.
All right, that's it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.